I remember getting a Simon and Garfunkel single called Cecilia from my mother when I was in 1970, when I was like 7 years old or something, and I hated it. So I got out and got my first own record, which was the T-Rex single. And since then, I've been in love with pop music, and I think it's just the most amazing thing. And but I was strictly a consumer as a kid and as a teenager. I didn't play any instruments. I didn't think of myself as a potential musician in any way whatsoever. What happened was that I lived in Amsterdam in the early 1980s, and I was doing video art. And I decided to make some sounds to go with my video art pieces, and got my first two synthesizers. And I didn't know how to play. And I just started playing around with it, and it turned out so great that all the other video artists asked me to do soundtracks for their pieces too. And I got to Stockholm in 1983 for the first time, where I recorded my first demos in a professional recording studio. I just hired a studio, got a technician, and started recording. And while I was recording, I decided to play everything myself. And, you know, at the end of the first day, the technician asked me, so where are all your notes? What do you mean notes? You know, where are your notes? I don't have any notes. What do you mean? This whole fucking arrangement, this whole production you just did with this track, which is amazing, by the way, you had it all in your head? And then I just realized that I had a unique talent for record production, because I could actually keep the whole production in my head with a complete idea of how the bass line would run, what the strings would be like, the pads, you know, the vocals, the melody, the lyrics, everything. So I realized this was something I was really talented with. So I was going at the Stockholm School of Economics, and I wanted to get my academic career going, but I decided to try to make some money out of it as well by writing pop songs. And then in 1985, I got hired by a music publishing company as a talented young writer. And they basically gave me free rein and said, you're an amazing talent, Alexander. We just want to sign you, give you some money, and go ahead and make your own music. And I had my first number one the very same year, a song that Agneta from ABBA recorded for her solo album. And then, you know, I had maybe 70 hit singles over the next 4 or 5 years in Scandinavia. And I also became incredibly interested in dance music. My background was basically glam rock, disco, and synth pop. Those were the three genres that I loved myself and that I was interested in. I think my musical taste would always be somewhere in between that, what we would call electronica today. I would like to move on. You know, people ask me, why did you stop doing Army of Lovers? It was so successful. For the simple reason I didn't have any new ideas. Jean-Pierre and I had explored the ideas that we thought were Army of Lovers, and it felt like a good idea just to close down and move on to do something different. And I played in a band called Vacuum for a few years. Then I produced and wrote the records for Alcazar, which was good for me because I was tired of being on stage. But I've always been in love with the songwriting and the record production process. Being on stage is not a natural given to me. You know, sometimes I feel like getting up there, and sometimes I just don't want anybody to know that I'm around. And I've been fortunate in the sense that I've been able to make a career both as a public persona, but also as a record producer and a songwriter, which is a more discreet type of work. So, and then after Alcazar, I did BWO in the 90s, and now Gravitonas since 2 years. So it's about where I'm at. It's about the people I run into. I go with the flow. I don't have a grand master plan in any way whatsoever. And I like to do things that I haven't done before. I like to challenge myself. And I think what I'm actually doing in Gravitonas is that I'm exploring myself as a proper musician for the first time, as a live keyboardist. So it's a live musician, which is something I haven't really done before. And it's an amazing challenge, and it's great fun. And I love working with Andreas. He's one of the sweetest, most fascinating personalities I've ever met. And we have an amazing chemistry as songwriters and as a band together. And we really love working together. And that's why I got involved with Gravitonas. And here I am, as pathetic as Madonna. I'm still on stage, 51 years old. But that's just the way it is, you know, and I love it. Oh, I'm great friends with Jean-Pierre from Army of Lovers. To be honest about it, we became friends afterwards. Because Army of Lovers was a very hectic time. Our success was instant. within months, we went from absolute nowheres in tiny, by then isolated, marginal Sweden that didn't really count in the music industry, and became worldwide stars. And Crucified was a #1 record in 29 countries around the world. And we were touring Europe, we were touring South America, we were touring Russia. You know, we were everywhere. So it all went very, very fast. And you know, we didn't really have any proper management. The kind of infrastructure that we have in the music industry today hardly existed, especially not in Scandinavia. It was unheard of. So, you know, I basically considered Jean-Pierre a great guy to do music with. He was an amazing talent on stage, but we lived very separate social lives, and I didn't think we had anything in common whatsoever. And then after my lover split up, a couple of years later, I met him at a rave, when the whole rave thing took off in the 1990s, and we were totally into it. You know, the whole thing, the whole drugs and everything. It was just great fun. And I ran into him at a rave, and we realized we'd be great friends. We'd be really, really good friends. And it was just like we'd never worked together. Like, we hardly knew each other, and we just became really close, really good friends, and have been ever since. He's one of my best friends. He's an amazing guy. His brain is wired in the weirdest possible way. You know, when you talk to him, the way he associates between things is just weird. And that's exactly why he was a great lyricist when I worked with him for My Lovers. We wrote all the lyrics, Jean-Pierre and I. And he was a great lyricist because he had this really weird way of looking at things. Algerian Jewish, what else, you know? Dominica is a borderline witch. She is horrible and absolutely delightful at the same time. We used to have a relationship in the 1990s. I'm a bisexual. And we split up. We still had a good chemistry working together. We were good friends. But we're like, there's like a brother-sister relationship where she's like my kid sister. But boy, she can be absolutely mad. And at times she's totally overbearing. But, you know, you forgive her. The second she shows her charm, you forgive her. She's just really nice. The other two girls from My Lovers, I really don't have much contact with today. La Camilla is doing a lot of TV and things over here in Sweden, but we're not friends. We probably have a chat if we met, you know, but it's not like, just because I have a history with somebody doesn't mean they necessarily belong to my future. And Michaela is the kind of woman I run into now and then at parties, and we have a glass, and you know, for old time's sake, she's great. She's a jewelry designer now. But since I don't do jewelry design and she's no longer in the music industry, you know, we don't have that much in common. So, and of course, the bands that I did later are people that are naturally closer to me because I still have close relationships with them, like Martin and Marina from BWL. I run into them all the time. Marina's in the art scene. She's one of the biggest art dealers in Europe. I buy a lot of contemporary art. I love that whole thing. She taught me almost everything I know about contemporary art. So she's a really close friend of mine as well. So, you know, it's like all the people I used to live with, that I fucked around with, or the people I bands with. You know, it's kind of a marriage thing. But I'm very Scandinavian in the sense that I take great pride in being a good friend of the people I live with. So I take pride in being a good friend of the musicians I work with as well. Let's put it this way. I'm an intellectual bisexual from Northern Europe. If I would vote in America, would I vote for a Mormon guy from a hedge fund? No, I would not. You know, it's the fact that Mitt Romney is there and he's one of the two candidates is one of these things that totally, you know, it's just unbelievable to European people. I've been a lot in America. I understand the American context, you know, but. You know, the fact that there's like 35% evangelical Christians in America is just unfathomable for a European person. It's just something we don't understand it. We never get it. It's a total mystery to us here. You know, it's a mystery the way it's a mystery that Indians can actually seriously go to temple and worship an elephant guy, you know, with a blue elephant nose. You know, it's just totally weird. I live in a country like Sweden where 95% of the population are confessed atheists. And nobody ever goes to church. So yeah, Obama is popular over here. He's very popular in Europe, and I think maybe sometimes European people understand better than Americans what a hard job the guy actually has. Americans tend to have too much of belief in what their president can do, but you know, if you got a Democratic president with a very aggressive Republican Congress, there's only that much he can do. And I think in Europe, it's probably, with the distance we have, it's probably easier for us to understand and forgive Obama for his shortcomings. And he's actually still extremely popular over here. Oh, there's no other place I'd live right now if I was in the music industry. Because Stockholm has, it's like a cliche. Stockholm has become to pop music what Nashville is to country music. It's become the main production center of pop music in the world. Lady Gaga made her last record here. Madonna records here all the time. You know, they're all here. They work with Scandinavian songwriters and producers. And if they don't work in Stockholm, maybe they work in Oslo, like Rihanna. You know, but it's all happening in Scandinavia. And, you know, I've lived in so many different places on this planet. And I go to India every year. I love India. I'm going to have a house in Thailand this winter, you know, to sit and write on the new book. But as long as I'm in the music industry, there's no way I can leave Stockholm. This is the place to be. This is where production and songwriting takes place. And even if I do co-write with songwriters from other countries, I write all my best songs with other Swedes. Because the Swedes have this amazing skill these days, this sensibility of pop music that's really unique. And that's why they're so good at it. So, yeah, and there are Scandinavian artists. You know, Gravitonas is part of a new wave of Scandinavian artists, like Lykke and Robin, and there's a lot of new names coming out of Scandinavia at the moment. But at the end of the day, the main focus in Stockholm is always going to be about producing and writing for artists from abroad, obviously for artists from the US and the UK. But Andreas and Ben from Gravitonas are huge heroes in Japan at the moment. They have the #1 record in Japan at the Christmas chart, and all the Japanese guys are coming over here to Stockholm now to write with them. And Gravitonas, we have a permanent studio and apartment in Tokyo, so Andreas and Ben can go there all the time to write. So we are ourselves in Gravitonas writing and producing for a lot of other artists too. And then if we write a song that we love ourselves, and that sounds great when Andreas does the vocals, you know, then it becomes a Gravitonas song. But that's how we work.